Hello and welcome to day 65 of 365 days towards racial change. My name is Tomlins Nyback, and we're talking about black research involved in making our black politics much better. Before we get too much of that, we'll get into our introduction. We are here talking about black life in America, how blacks live, and two main ideas or focus points I want us to try to keep in mind as we move through the conversation this year is the first part. The first idea has two parts, and the one part is are blacks conditioned from slavery to behave in certain ways? Are we, as the black community, passing down its slave ideology mindset from generation to generation? And does white privilege, entitlement, get passed down from generation to generation? Are we still living as a slave master society, just with the appearance of freedom and inclusion? Second issue is are blacks being educated, or do they understand their economic position in America, whether it's as a marginalized minority outgroup or understanding the bigger financial structures internationally, nationally, the Federal Reserve, international banking, what uh, the dollar means to the black person in America, why it seems to have not as much power and sway as a white dollar. So those are some of the things. I've come to this mindset and this burden because of a man named Dr. Claude Anderson. He speaks actually much more articulately, and he's researched and expounded on these issues. You can find him on social media and a lot of YouTube videos. Dr. Claude Anderson. I suggest you check him out. I read three of his works. First work I read was A Black History Reader, 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask. Second book was Black Labor, White Wealth, Search for Power and Economic Justice, and Dr. Anderson's National Plan to Empower Black America, Powernomics. All great reads. Please get these texts so you understand where I'm coming from. Follow along, please. Little caveat, the disclaimer is that Powernomics is it's more than a decade old. I think the ideas are still relevant. I don't see blacks as a group having come much further from 10 years ago. Remember, we're still digging out from the real estate market crash and all that. So that's kind of the era when he wanted to see some of the fruition of his ideas come to pass, just so that we're not always mired in reality. We'll take a fictional account of the slave master dynamic in America through Harriet Beecher Stowe's phenomenal work, Uncle Tom's Cabin, from the mid 1800s. We check in on old Tom, see how he's doing, how his life as a slave is progressing. It's a very great book. I wish it was more. It was never used in my educational curriculum. I know why, but it's I don't know. It's just sad how manipulative education is. It just prepares black folks to be workers, and it prepares white folks for management. It's just bad, and the two groups are sitting in the same classroom, coming out with those different perspectives. It's very sad. You'll see behind me hashtag us too. That's the hashtag us too movement. I think it's a response to the hashtag me too movement. But here you'll find black women discussing issues. There's also Black Enough, BLAGGENUF. You'll find more of that. That's kind of a black Facebook type page and forum. Find Dr. Anderson and his work more specifically at powernomics.com and the Heritage Institute. All this stuff is readily found online, easily identifiable. So Here today, we're talking about black research. We're going through a series of political moves blacks can make in uh, their action steps towards understanding, how to get some political traction here in America, because politics represents um, it's individuals representing groups for access to wealth and power. It's not any idealism or moral uh, solutions. It's about something for something. This group sends this individual into America's power structure. Then they're expecting some reciprocation for that support in the form of access to wealth and resources. That's politics. Remember, America is a corporation, you know, very complicated one, but it's a corporation. Everything boils down to dollars and cents. Our president is the CEO to a large degree, not some champion of civil rights or morality or religiosity, anything. All of those intangibles, you know, but it's about the dollar and securing America financially as a corporation in an international global community. And can boil down to bloodshed, war, threats, espionage, spying, all kinds of stuff. When we get real, it's about having good security in the form of our military and properly um, allocating dollars and resources towards that everything. This America is a big corporation. Remember that. So today we're looking at number 4 in Dr. Anderson's political action steps coming out of Powernomics, page 198. And it's about research and collecting data for, to submit to organizations, research think tanks, politicians, so they have adequate information. So it's like so they can kind of take the pulse of the black community and present real factual data, numbers, maybe some testimonials. But remember, this is dollars and cents. America's a business, a corporation. And so they can present that data to the even higher power structures so that the black voice is heard. So we're not caught up in an emotionalism or trying to appeal to the power structure's moral sensibilities and all that stuff. We're not interested in that. We want facts, dollars and cents, quid pro quo, something for something, analysis, logic about why blacks are not getting enough or not participating enough, why blacks are presented or obstructed, how to properly give blacks, I don't like the word give blacks, but how to properly accept black participation in America. Why aren't they participating as well as other groups and things like that? That's the kind of data you would research to bring back and explain and create policies to help Black America. So but they would start with data, research, polling, things like that, some focused stuff. And now here in the next day or so as well, we're going to be talking about research and centralizing uh, resources, and I'm struggling because here I am on YouTube doing stuff, but there's too much. I noticed when the internet really got settled and dug in, and people really bought in to the whole thing. Well, then you've got it's like this own uncontrollable uh, knowledge popping up like weeds. You can find so many subjects on so many things, and you can be so distracted, and you can be so focused and locked in. So I had to go. It took me a couple of years just to develop my own process of how to approach uh, this vast um, storehouse, this cache of knowledge. um, so, Dr. Anderson, his ideas, they're great. They work well with a community focused and pointed in a similar direction, but it gets much harder and harder. I mean, I can spend all day creating brand new websites of subjects and keep people distracted. Not me, maybe personally, I'm not much of a magnet like that, but there's almost a website for every person on the planet. Everybody has access to it, can create it for free and whatnot. And you're talking 7-8 billion people, and that's, probably have that many sites easily. You know, there's all kinds of search engines and all that. So what I'm just saying is that as we talk a little about some of the scientific, logical data producing methods, I'm letting you know I'm not naive to how, uh, especially in America, there's so much um, attention to grabbing your attention on these subjects and issues. Um, so for people to pause, long enough to consistently go over this type of data and research, it's impressive. To do that, I find myself struggling. I have a lot of my own distractions that I have to pull away from. Sitting here for these few minutes is not easy. Not easy to listen, not easy to make because I'm thinking about a whole lot of other stuff. So anyway, blacks need these research institutes, think tanks, focused data, research, and ways to gather information um, to bring forward to make black progress more viable here in this nation. I understand it's not easy. So let's just walk through briefly some goals for um, some goals like as a result of these research and think tanks and organizations and such. So we already talked a little bit about giving black officials reliable information for to bring, because it's a hierarchy, power structure, things like that, and so that you know a politician truly interested in black issues would be moving not in a vacuum, but relying on reliable data that they've collected and brought to um, Congress and up that kind of chain of command here in America. Very important. Um, we could help black communities that are thriving in America. He just has 20 most populated black communities. I don't know. He didn't give enough background on what that is, who that is, where that's at. Um, Maybe later I'll stumble onto what he's talking about. But the idea is get those communities, those large ones, those thriving ones that haven't been sacked, like Tulsa and Rosewood and some of the other communities. Um, get them functioning, get them vertically integrated, business-wise, ethno-aggregated, culturally, and getting those resources circulating within those communities to make them stronger. And then those communities can um, send their representatives, send their leaders, their elected officials on up the chain. Much like take South Florida with the influx of the Cubans and all that stuff. That's an important aspect and part of making um, this work. It would be the goal of gathering any research from one particular group of people. So we have a lot of models out there. We got the Cubans in South Florida. Today we got Arabs in Detroit. All these groups come in. Um, Hispanics are just like wildfire, but instead of complaining, we could use them as examples of coming in to America, planting themselves, but staying cohesive as a group, um, and making that work and sending their leaders forward. I think this election may have we've got a very getting more and more diverse for 2020. So it's going to be interesting to see uh, who comes out on top. Whose support um, wins out. It's not no longer just a collection of powerful white men moving on up the chain of power in America. We've got women that are apparently identifying as African American. We've got some Hispanic culture flavor moving up there. Hillary last election ran with a man with a lot of bringing a lot of Hispanic um, resources with him. Although I don't think he was Spanish. He just knows about the culture and stuff. But this election, there's a lot of we're really seeing true cross-section representation of America, and as we're going to see uh, differences, things really transform and change as these groups are sending their leaders, they're focusing, organizing, and making their leaders available in the political realm. Politics means that those groups have an expectation of some socioeconomic favor here in America. You know, you grease the squeaky wheel, and those kind of things like that. Those groups, because they're organized and all that, are making it happen. Okay. Ah, this data collection can bring about economic, political self-sufficiency, competitiveness. One thing most of the groups, if not all groups that are in competition with Black Americans have is they've got the language, they've got a language and a culture. Two things Black Americans descended from slavery don't have. A lot of that's stripped away from us. So we're not even, it's stripped away from us to the point that we're not even associated along with Africans anymore. We were a whole brand new, unique people in this nation. And so we had our religion stripped, all culture stripped away, educated and conditioned out of us, whatever that was, and all that. We don't care because this is who we are now, you know. So not having a consistent culture that we adhere to. I've started to argue that we should maybe go and embrace our slave heritage, make that our rally point, central focus, and move from that space. But we do, it seems as blacks, do everything they can to move away from that position. Don't want to associate with that position. It's because it doesn't. It's not glamorous. It's not um, as glamorous as a war or insurrection or something like that. So um, we don't focus back there on that. Now it's to our detriment because we have nothing, no foothold, nothing on which to stand to say we want to be elevated. We say we want reparations from what? Give us the power structures once, I believe, wants some background on that, but we're tongue-tied. We don't want to talk consistently about being whipped, murdered, lynched, separated from our families, abused, conditioned. We're not coming from a very positive place. So I think we need to work on that a little more, a lot more. Not Black History Month and Dr. King's birthday. Not all the successes. Let's talk about real roots, where we're coming from. Okay, the data can be used to make prescriptive solutions for Black folks. The data, getting this kind of data, focusing it, it's seeing what it really tells us. Like, we already know about the dysfunction, imprisonment, criminal behavior, drug addiction, and all this stuff. Though that's we understand that. We know where that's coming from, why that is. But we could also go forward and get new ideas for leadership and institution. Maybe there's something there if we really collect data, focus it. Maybe we'll find something totally new and unexpected. Like we found out that football causes these concussions, and these concussions drive men mad. So, maybe we'll find by a real concerted collection of data, so something new to bring some healing and power to Black folks. It'd be used to bring together all our scholars, strategists, researchers, philosophers, things like that. They could go over this and make some stuff, if that's not already happening. I'm not sure. I'm going from my little microcosm of space here in the world, and I don't get out much, I gotta admit. So maybe it is going on, hopefully it is, and whatnot. Something we're going to talk about tomorrow is an electronic information network, which would, be a place to tap in now. Having said that, hashtag, Us Too Movement, Black Enough, any other social Black network is already going to say that they are that. They are the central place to get real information about Black folks. And that's another problem for Black folks, is this disunity and the inability to focus and come together to harmonize our resources is problematic. It's what I said at the top of the program, that there's just so much out there. What is it even possible to get one publication, one resource to be the representative of the Black experience, Black goals, desires. Get one to do that. That's a toughie. That's a toughie. But I don't know. Maybe if you can get them all to cross-reference each other on one issue or point, it take a lot of energy to do that. But that's an idea, to have one focal point uh, to discuss these issues electronically or in print. You think about the Nation of Islam's final call is an example of that, Or back, I remember the Malcolm X movie, Denzel Washington, I guess he's in some diner or something, but the radio in the background has uh, Louis Farrakhan giving a talk, and that's another thing. We're going to talk about this, I think, tomorrow, though. But it is the having our mass media, radio and television, to be a place to come to gather socially, reaching more people, like the Hispanics have done. Um, our Asian brothers and sisters have much of that, and got the internet. There's just so many access points, you know. So we'll get into that later. Um, so getting policies and programs to pool capital, vertically integrate businesses, ethno-aggregate resources, getting the community to circulate get its own economy going. And it's really tough because Blacks especially have very little choices on how to get their dollars and resources circulating and staying within the community, because everybody else has what we need to live and survive. Walmart has the stuff to make furnish our apartments and the stuff we need, electronics and all this stuff, and everything is under someone else's control. Even Black hair care. Some Asians are moving in. They come to create business, not find a job. Dr. Anderson talks about that in some of his videos. Because he's talked to these groups. He understands. He's very interactive. And the feedback, especially from the Asian groups, is that the Asians come. They look for where's the business, how to make a business, blah blah blah. They don't come looking for how to make a job. They're going to make it work, and suddenly the community's working for them and carrying their dollars to the bodegas or hair care, nail care, stuff like that. Things that Blacks use a lot but don't own business-wise. Very, very frustrating. Very frustrating, which is why I'm trying to explore, tease out our thinking about whether or not the Black community is just perpetuating slave consciousness and conditioning from 1700s. Okay, and finally, we collect data to promote our group accountability at Black people behaving rightly. We already know we're overrepresented in the penal system. We're strung out on drugs and whatnot, and we can, if we're Black, we know some, if not many, of our family members who have just fallen through the cracks. So we kind of know that data, but what about using this information to encourage us to think more seriously about business creation, entrepreneurship, and all these things? I know these things are happening, but I want to kind of become a cultural consensus for folks to be producers and not consumers, employers rather than employees. Big difference, and it's a mental thing. I'm going through the transformation right now. It doesn't happen overnight. Got to exercise faith, opportunities, take advantage of opportunities, whatnot. So there we are. We're at the bottom of our piece for our day 65 here. Think about these things. We're not going out marching. That doesn't work. Let's let go of that. Let's find our grassroots, practical ways to have our voice heard in the political realm. We've got a couple more days to go on this subject, running up to our 2020 election. I'm Tomlin's Nyback, and that's another day 65 of 365 days towards racial change. We'll see you tomorrow.